Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. You good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful June the 19th, 2019, Grando Deportes. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, it's been a miserable day. I lost focus. You know, I sit up and listen to the president last night, and the rhetoric that he was spewing was from 2.5, 3 years ago, Charlton.
Yep.
And I lost track of the day. I mean, listening to him is almost like listening to the draft prognosticators. That
Yeah.
Everybody's got it figured out, but no one knows what a team is thinking.
Yeah.
And even with the draft coming up, Charlton, how many players will stay with their original team? We saw several draft trades last year on that first night. We're going to get them again this year.
Yeah, and the thing about being drafted, it doesn't mean you make the team. You're just getting drafted, but there's no guarantee of anything. So we love the fact that we go back and forth, and no one's really talking about the players that were drafted last year. I mean, the guy that helped win the NBA championships was Kawhi Leonard. It's all about having some veteran guys. Also, in the world of college baseball, Auburn got knocked out again today. And so they'll be getting ready for football coming up against Oregon sooner than they wanted to be. In that Vanderbilt program, they're really playing well. Really love the way they throw the ball down in the South. There's a lot going on in the sports universe. I know the World Cup's going on with women playing soccer over in France, and I'm sure they're having a great time there. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. It's all fair in love and war. I do love just reminding people, your summer's out, and I was meeting with someone in business today, and we were talking about just business and how having children that are out of school, sometimes they're out on their own. I remember when I was a young boy growing up, I used to hear this news program come on, and right around 10, 11 o'clock at night, it would say, "Do you know where your children are?" And so we were both talking about that as people are concerned about what goes on with their kids out of school, and make sure that people know where your kids are. You never want them to be accused of something that they did not do. That happens all too often in this country. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, it's very paramount that parents stay in contact with their children. I know when I was growing up, we didn't have accessibility to cell phones. I mean, we used a tin can with a string between them, to communicate with each other. That was our cell phone today.
It took me a while to get that.
but parents have the opportunity at all times now to know where their children are. You can put a tracking device on the phone so you're aware of your children's activities and movements. But as you say, it's paramount that with all this spare time that kids have and not attending school during the summer, and most parents are still working, Charlie, that they do understand the whereabouts and the parameters of what their children are doing during the summer.
That's very true. So I just want to say, a lot of times, even for veterans, it's all people. There's a national suicide hotline number. Even if you just need help, if you need to know the help is out there, it's 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or 838. You can text 838-255. That's 838-255. So if you need some help, sometimes you don't go to your parents, just go and call those numbers and hopefully help us on the way. I know we're into the preview of the NBA draft, and we'll talk about that too. We started hitting it earlier this week, but I still know NFL is big, and it's sometimes the NFL is the equivalent of the movie The Never Ending Story. It's like, I want to hear you think about Big C's top 10 receivers in the NFL, just some guys that I want you to come up with that you think are there. Everybody has their own opinion. I know the mothership has people. Everybody has somebody. But I want to get your thoughts on who are some of the top 10 receivers in the NFL. We know there's a long list of them out there. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, everybody wants to look at the guys who are grabbing the headlines when it comes to receivers. Headlines are not productivity, though, Charlton. Do you make your team better? These are the things that you have to look at when you're looking at a quality receiver. How much time are you spending on the field? How much time are you spending in the official's ear.
Yeah.
And I think one of the receivers that took the NFL last year by storm, Charlton, and he would be number 10 on my list, would be Adam Thielen, up with the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, he set an NFL record at the beginning of the season, Charlton, where he had 8 consecutive games with over 100 yards in receiving.
Yeah.
No receiver had ever done that before. And Charlton, this young man was a free agent out of Minnesota State. He was a ball boy as a kid growing up at the Vikings training camp.
Yeah.
And he translated that into pro football. He was around some of the greatest receivers of all time in the NFL to learn from. Chris Carter, Randy Moss, Charlton. He had exposure to those young gentlemen and how to conduct themselves in the NFL.
It's amazing you bring up the names of Chris Carter. I remember watching Chris Carter when he played at Ohio State, and I think they played, it was Texas A&M down in the Cotton Bowl, and I still remember he had a catch where he just went up with 2 hands on the sideline. It's as if he had stickum on his hand. I don't know, maybe he did have stickum on his hand, Big C, but he was one of the greatest receivers I ever saw at the college level, and to see him do the same thing in the NFL, of course, you bring up guys like Moss. But would you think Thielen is in that type of echelon with those kind of players? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, from a speed factor, he's not there with Moss. With a hands factor, he's there with Carter.
Yeah.
But when you look at what he has done productivity-wise, I mean, when you look at the NFL, a lot of white receivers don't get the acclaim that they deserve. And Adam Thielen has broken that ice, Charlton, in being in the top 10.
Yeah, well, that's solid, too. And there's also, let's say, like Brandon Cooks for the Rams. I know that a lot of people like him, a speed guy, didn't catch a lot of passes in the Super Bowl last year, but give me your feeling on him, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, you know, I look at the productivity of Brandon Cooks over the last 3 years with 3 different teams. You think about receivers that are changing systems and being productive. Brandon Cooks has done that. You know, 3 years ago, he was with the New Orleans Saints.
Yep.
He was traded to the New England Patriots, went to a Super Bowl, Charlton. Subsequently, the following year, he was traded to the Los Angeles Rams, went to another Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But he's been a persistent 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL since coming out of Oregon State. This is a guy that can adjust the systems, adjust the quarterbacks, and has been an excellent teammate.
Now, when you talk about him, imagine him coming out of Oregon State where they were always finishing right around the lower part of the Pac-12 conference. But now that he's an NFL baller, I really like him. Who would you say would be your number 8 guy, Big C? Your thoughts?
You know, a guy I really like, I like the big receivers. Keenan Allen out with the Los Angeles Chargers. I keep saying San Diego because
you want to
in
go
my
there
mind,
again.
that's what they were.
Yeah.
You know, Keenan Allen, a big, lengthy receiver. You know, he works well with Phillip Rivers, Charlton. He doesn't get the acclaim because Los Angeles and playing in that little tiny stadium out there in Carson with the Chargers. But when you look at his numbers, Charlton, this is a guy that's very difficult to cover one-on-one. You most likely have to double team him most of the time.
Yeah.
But when he's healthy, we've seen what the San Diego Chargers have done the last 2 years. They've pushed for the division title, Charlton.
And I believe that stadium in Inglewood, not ready this season, but I think it's ready for the 2020 or 21 season. They can't be much further along. I think the Raiders will get their stadium in Vegas right around 2020. That's what we're hearing. And then you also look at the Rams and the Chargers sharing that beautiful stadium in Inglewood. I'm sure there's going to be must-see, events when you go down to both of those stadiums. Give me your number 7 guy. I know a lot of guys can't make the list. It's like ring around, what's it called, musical chairs. There's 30 people trying, or NFL-wise, 32 guys trying to sit down on 7 chairs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I like a young player in Pittsburgh, Juju Schuster, out of USC.
Yeah.
He has been very productive in that Steelers offense. One of the things the Steelers organizations do is that they find wide receivers. Ever since Chuck Noll had been head coach there, Charlton, they have had a plethora of wide receivers that have gone to the Hall of Fame that have been consistent All-Pros. You look at the development of Schuster with Ben Roethlisberger, it allowed the Antonio Brown trade to Oakland because of the development of this young player who has not been in the spotlight making waves with the team, Charlton.
Yeah, a thing, too, I love about Schuster, he came out of USC, or one of the programs that I think will rise to national prominence again. Once they start getting some of those players that keep leaving California and they go south. When Pete Carroll was out here, he kept them in California. But I really love that young man. He's a great player. He also took him a long time to buy a car. He used to ride a bicycle to practice. Didn't he know that it's legal to drive in Pennsylvania? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he didn't have his driver's license, and when he got to the Steelers, he was only a 20-year-old rookie.
Yeah.
And somebody stole his bike, so he realized I do need the driver's license because it's harder to pick up a car and carry it away.
And that's very true. Give me your feeling on who the number 6 guy would be. And again, this always, everybody has an opinion, but when you start getting down to the top 10, I think what you've done so far, I really like it. Give me your number 6 guy, Big C. Who are your thoughts on that?
Well, Charlton, I mean, it will always be a logjam of great receivers in the NFL. And guys who don't make waves in the media but make waves on the field.
Yep.
Another big receiver I like is Mike Evans down at Tampa Bay.
He's solid.
You know, he's out of Texas A&M. Mike Evans has never had consistency at quarterback since he's been with Tampa Bay. There's always been some type of turmoil down there in the office. But when you look at the productivity and his numbers in the NFL, Charlton, they're parallel with all the top 5 receivers in the NFL, and he's very difficult to cover at 6'5", Charlton.
Yeah.
He's as much a threat as any big receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I really like him. And then you look at, they've had Fitzpatrick, and then they had the guy Winston. And I want to just defend Winston because they accused him of stealing some crab cakes. But now I know that a lot of times in Florida, because it's so hot, they always give out free water. Maybe he thought they were giving out free food too. I just want to defend him. A lot of people, athletes don't normally pay for things. Someone just dropped dime on him, Big C. Does that make any sense?
Well, they did. It was called videotape. That's what dropped down on. You know, and sometimes if you're going to take something, at least try to conceal it. Just don't walk in and pick up a tray and walk out of the store with a video camera.
Well, how do you put a live crab in your pants, Big C? That's not the safest thing to do, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess if you wear a jock strap, you'll be somewhat covered.
Squeeze a bit, I understand. Give me another feeling as we get into the top 5. There's always people that say, no, not this guy, it's another guy. But your top 5, I want to hear who you think would be, one of those game changers for NFL receivers, Big C.
Well, this guy flies under the radar with everybody, Charlton, because of where he plays up in Green Bay, and his quarterback gets all the accolades up there.
Yep.
But Davante Adams out of Fresno State has developed into one of the finest receivers in the NFL. He's actually led the NFL in touchdown receptions over the last 2 years. He's been a perennial 1,000-yard receiver in that Green Bay offense. And you think 2 years ago, Green Bay went through 3 different quarterbacks, Charlton.
Wow.
But he was the mainstay in their offense. And with Aaron Rodgers potentially being healthy this year, Charlton, he'll have an outstanding season. And Green Bay has a chance of winning the NFC North.
Well, I remember watching Davante Adams in high school. He played at Palo Alto High School down in the Bay Area by Stanford. But they didn't give him a scholarship offer at Cal or Stanford up in the Bay Area, not even San Jose State. But he went down to Bulldog territory in the Central Valley, and he shined and became just the most dominant receiver on the West Coast, and now he's one of the top guys in the NFL. I remember him playing in a high school all-star game at the same stadium where the Chargers played. Could you imagine if the Packers ever play the Chargers down in Carson, you have Davante Adams will go to the same stadium where they lost their state championship game. I think they lost to Santa Margarita or they lost to Centennial Corona, one of those programs. Going to the same stadium where you played high school, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's common down in Texas when you're about all the high school championship games are played in AT&T Stadium, even in Georgia. They're played in the Georgia Dome. Most states, Charlton, that are big football programs, they play in the NFL stadium.
Yeah, that's true too, Big C. So we've been through Big C's top 5. We're on the list of top 10, of course. We went through 10 through 5. Now, when it comes down to, again, everybody has their opinion, but give me Big C's number 4 guy that makes a difference in the NFL. Your thoughts?
My number 4 receiver, Charlton, is out of that Bulldog country, as you say, but he's out of the University of Georgia. That's A.J. Green with the Cincinnati Bengals. A.J. Green, if they could get more consistency out of the quarterbacks in Cincinnati, I know he's constantly dealt with a hurt Andy Dalton, and part of that cost Marvin Lewis his job. But A.J. Green has not took a backseat to any receiver in the NFL since he's become a part of the league. He's been a constant deep threat for the Bengals. He's been the one consistent in that offense, and he's been a perennial All-Pro.
Yeah, and when you have a receiver, it can be as great as anything in the world. But if you don't have a guy that can get the ball to his hands, then it doesn't matter how great he is. And I think we found that out with Cooper leaving from Oakland down to Texas, and it got the Cowboys over the hump and got them into the playoffs, but wasn't able to have the same success with Oakland. Not saying anything's wrong with Derek Carr, but sometimes systems and quarterbacks make a big difference. Give me another feeling when you look at the number 3, there's always a top 3, and sometimes if you have a NFL lineup, they'll go trips to the right or left. Give me your number 3 guy that's one of Big C's top 10 receivers.
Well, when I look at the final 3, Charlton, in this top 3, all 3 of them are game changers, and they're the mainstays of their offense. They have made their quarterbacks look good. DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, you can flip-flop him anywhere in the top 3, down at the with the Houston Texans out of the University of Clemson, Charlton. Yeah. He is the one receiver in the NFL that people really don't realize because he's so quiet. 15 touchdown receptions last year with his young quarterback.
Yeah.
But this guy is a threat, one of the more acrobatic receivers in the NFL, and he has an over-the-top speed.
Yep.
So when you think about Deshaun Watson having a go-to guy in him, this is what makes the Houston Texans dangerous, Charlton. If they can get some consistency on the offensive line, he could have even greater numbers than what he's had in the past 2 years.
Yeah, Hopkins is a stud. And also, when you look at, you have a quarterback who's mobile in the pocket, he could buy you that extra 4 or 5 steps that get you open as opposed to throwing the ball away. And just one more thing, too. When you think about the quarterback and you look at how solid his quarterback is down at Texas, Watson, I think we have the propensity to say we don't want a running quarterback. He could get hurt. We're waiting for some guy to get banged up. That's what they normally say. But there's so many times when you have a quarterback that can move around in the pocket, he buys you that extra step or 2 that you need as a receiver to get some separation, and I think that's also important. And then when you think about that, I remember if you think about Drew Brees and how he's done it for so many years, they don't think of him as a running quarterback, but he's mobile and he helps buy time for his receivers. Give me your number 2 guy in Big C's top 10 NFL receivers. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you talk about number 2, Charlton, you just talked about the quarterback, Drew Brees.
Yeah.
And that's Michael Thomas out of Ohio State, Charlton. This is the nephew of Keyshawn Johnson, former overall number 1 pick in the NFL. Michael Thomas has been the most dominant receiver in the NFL over the last 3 seasons. He has led the NFL in total receptions over the last 3 seasons. And when you think about the productivity of that offense down in New Orleans and Drew Brees being able to spread the ball around, Michael Thomas has just been a dominant receiver, which no one saw him breaking onto the scene the way he has done in New Orleans. But his presence is part of what makes New Orleans offense great.
Yeah, and would you think that if Drew Brees is considered a running quarterback, do you think it adds more value? Because he hasn't really been banged up throughout his career. Everybody has a little, banged up shoulder every now and then. But he is a guy that can throw the ball, but he also moves around in the pocket. He's not a sitting target like a lot of tall quarterbacks that can't get around. Would you consider him a running quarterback, or would you not, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I consider him more of a mobile quarterback than a running quarterback, Charlton. He understands how to slide in the pocket. Now, if you go back early in his career, when he had his shoulder destroyed when he was playing with the San Diego Chargers, and everybody thought that his NFL career was over. Matter of fact, he's the reason why Alabama has such a dominant college program, because the team doctors in Miami would not pass the physical for Drew Brees, and that's when Nick Saban was the head coach down there, and because of that, Nick Saban left and went to Alabama. Think about the fortunes of the Miami Dolphins on those doctors making that bad decision about Drew Brees. But his knowledge of the pocket, understanding how to slide and pick up more time. Tom Brady does the same thing also, Charlton. You don't have to be a fleet-footed quarterback to be called a mobile quarterback. And he's mobile because he understands where the pressure is coming from. He reads so well pre-snap. But that's what allows his receivers to buy time and being on the same page with them.
Yeah, that's a very good point, too. Give me your number 1. And again, when you say number 1, if you look at the history of the NFL, a lot of people say Jerry Rice because he has the 200 touchdowns. I still think that Randy Moss, I know he doesn't have the same consistency that Rice has had, but if you were to start them at the same starting block, not just running the 100-meter dash, of course, Moss would win that, but give me your feeling on who would be your number 1, and I want to ask you how they compare to say Jerry Rice or Randy Moss, who I still think is better than Jerry, just doesn't have as many touchdown receptions. Your thoughts?
Well, if you're talking about Moss and Rice, it's about being put into the right system with the right quarterback.
Yeah.
If you look at Randy Moss's career, he had a multitude of quarterbacks. He didn't have the stability that Jerry Rice had in San Francisco.
Hall of Famers.
Joe Montana, then moving to Steve Young and Jeff Garcia before his exodus out of San Francisco.
Yeah.
You look at Randy Moss when he started his career, Charlton, in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I mean, he started with Dante Culpepper, and from there to Randall Cunningham and a group of other quarterbacks to come along, and then moving teams to Oakland, to New England, to Tennessee, and parts in between.
Yeah.
So if he was to have been put in that San Francisco system, Charlton,
oh my goodness,
and even if he'd have been drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, and playing under Troy Aikman, who knows what type of numbers that Randy Moss would have put up. We've seen when he had an outstanding quarterback what he could do. We saw the numbers, for a couple of years with Randall Cunningham, with Dante Culpepper, and even Tom Brady. And that shows the adaptation of a receiver, how great he can be in multiple systems.
Yeah.
Regardless of who the quarterback is, if you can throw the ball, he can catch it. He just had a couple of teams in Tennessee and Oakland where he had nobody who could throw the ball to him.
That's true.
But when we get back to the modern day receivers right now, I'm going to put on the top of the list Julio Jones out of Atlanta.
Yeah.
When you look at the numbers that Julio has put together for his total receptions and yards over the past couple of years, and he is hard to cover one-on-one. He is that receiver that, as a defensive coordinator, you have to scheme for him.
Where is he?
And that's what they've done. And sometimes Atlanta's offense gets bogged down because Matt Ryan tries to force the ball to Julio Jones too often.
Yeah.
But, as far as a one-on-one receiver, Charlton, he is just a total beast with size and speed. And so you're going to always have to command double coverage with him. One of the things the Falcons have not been able to do with Julio, though, is get him into the end zone consistently.
Yeah.
I think it was 7 weeks into the season last year before he scored a touchdown.
Yep.
And so
That's
as much
crazy.
as people want to praise the quarterback in Atlanta, Matt Ryan, he has the inability to get Julio open in the red zone.
I remember watching the Bill Walsh era, and they had that West Coast offense, and it was mainly get the ball to the receivers within 10 yards. And I see sometimes with Julio down in Atlanta, they want to get him 40 yards downfield, and Ryan's not that accurate. So you're not going to have as many yards as Jerry Rice or as many touchdowns. And did you just say, and maybe I do recall this, but I don't really, when Julio got his first touchdown last year, they had played, 6 or 7 games, Wixie?
They was the 8th game of the season, Charlton, before Julio Jones scored his first touchdown in the 2018 season. So this is one of the things you have to look at as the Atlanta offense goes. I know they've gotten rid of their former offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian. Brought in Dirk Cutter, who was fired as the head coach in Tampa last year, but he was Matt Ryan's offensive coordinator Matt's first couple of years in the NFL. And how can he get Matt and Julio on the same page? I mean, they have a great receiving core in Atlanta. You got Mohamed Sanu, last year's #1 draft pick, Calvin Ridley out of Alabama. So how do you spread the wealth when you have 3 outstanding receivers on your lineup?
I have a clue. Don't have your quarterback thinking he has to pass for 4,000 yards every season. Throw those 10-yard routes and let them get yards after the catch. But oftentimes, and that's just new, I've seen Steve Young become a Hall of Fame quarterback doing that. I've seen Joe Montana, who did not have the best arm, become a Hall of Famer by getting the yards after the catch, not trying to throw 40 and 50 yards downfield. Makes that make any sense?
Well, that's what it's based on, Charlton. You got these big receivers. You have speed. So if you can get them into space, look at Michael Thomas in New Orleans. He has made a living on dink and dunk passes from Drew Brees. Caught more passes than any receiver in the NFL over the last 3 years. Adam Thielen up in Minnesota. Not the most fleet-footed of receivers, and he was number 10 on our list. But when you look at it, he started out the season, Charlton, with 8 consecutive 100-yard games, breaking an NFL record, setting an NFL record. So if you're getting the ball quick and you can turn it upfield and you can get the yards after the catch, Charlton, you can average 10 to 15 yards of reception.
And might even make it to the Hall of Fame. It worked for Jerry Rice. But everybody has their own.
Steve Largent. Steve Largent did that up in Seattle with Jim Zorn. I mean, he was an underneath receiver his entire career. And he turned that into a Hall of Fame career with the Seattle Seahawks.
You just made my mind think about something. Why is it? Because you just mentioned some receivers that are Hall of Famers, some quarterbacks that are Hall of Famers, and they're not in the Hall of Fame because they can throw the ball 60 yards downfield. But you look at every NFL college draft, all the OTAs, and all the boards, the guys that go out and say, this guy can throw the ball 60 yards downfield flat-footed, this guy can throw 70 yards flat-footed. But you find guys that are in the Hall of Fame because they were good at completing 10 to 15-yard passes, not 60-yard passes. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, even out there on the left coast where you are, we spoke about Jim Zorn, a left-handed quarterback, Kenny Stabler, another left-handed quarterback.
That's right. Yeah.
They didn't throw the deep ball. You know, they threw the underneath passes to receivers. They didn't have all the most fleet-footed receivers in their arsenal.
Yeah.
And so when people think that a quarterback has to be able to put the ball in the air 50 to 60 yards all the time, those pass completion ratios, Charlton, are very low. They're down in the 40%, 38 percentile on completion because the ball is in the air so long and the defense has time to close on it. I mean, even when we look at that receiving group of our top 10 for going into the season of 2019, there are going to be people that say, well, Antonio Brown's not on the list. Odell Beckham's not on the list. Odell Beckham and Antonio Brown did not make an impact in the NFL last year.
No.
Not only that, Charlton, they're going to new quarterbacks that don't understand them physically or mentally. And they're going to go to systems, Charlton, where they're going to be demanding the ball because of trades that they made.
Yeah.
How will that upset the apple cart of those teams in Oakland and in Cleveland? I mean, if Brown going to Oakland is going to change the mantra of Carr out there when he could not get the ball to Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
We saw what happened with Amari Cooper when he went to Dallas.
He signed
and all of a sudden, Dak Prescott had him in the playoffs because he had a game-breaking receiver. This receiver had the same skill set when he was in Oakland. He was just underutilized.
That's right.
So how are you going to bring a receiver in the caliber of an Antonio Brown into that same system, Charlton, and he not be downgraded in his exploits because Carr and the offense is not set up to his ability? I look at the same thing going to Cleveland with Odell Beckham. They had a solid receiving core in Cleveland last year. So who has to be downgraded from the receiving core for Odell Beckham to get his? I think he'll be more disruptive in that offensive scheme in Cleveland than he will be productive. Jarvis Landry, the leading receiver, Ojoku, the top tight end. They had a rookie receiver who really developed last year. And the running backs were solid out of the backfield. Now, Odell Beckham is going to say, I need the ball 10 times a game.
Yeah.
How will Baker Mayfield be able to manage that? And he's just a second-year quarterback.
Yeah, two egos that are going to butt heads. We'll see how it turns out in Cleveland. They have everything they need to be a solid team, but you got to have personalities that get along. And when two guys want to stand in the mirror first, how are we going to figure that out? But we'll see as the season progresses. I want to get your feeling as we close out on this talk of NFL, because just thinking about some guys you mentioned, whether it's Steve Largent, you had Fred Biletnikoff. They were not fast receivers. They were not guys that could blaze downfield. Even Jerry Rice, he wasn't one of those 4-3, 4-4 guys. So why is it that you have receivers that don't make you turn heads because they run a 4-3 40 or a 4-4 40? You have guys that are running 4-5 and 4-6 40s. Why are they some of the more successful receivers in the league, and they're not 4-3, 4-4 guys? Why does that matter, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, it's about the precision of running the route. When you look at pro football, it's all about timing. I mean, you could throw Chris Carter into that mix. He wasn't a fleet-footed receiver.
Yeah.
But all of those guys that you just spoke about were sure-handed receivers. You could get the ball to a spot, Charlton, and know that they were going to be there. They were not going to outrun their route.
Yeah.
That's what you look at when you look at great receivers, as a receiver that's not going to outrun his route. And that's what you had. I mean, I go back to Raymond Berry when he played with Johnny Unitas with the Baltimore Colts.
Yeah.
This was a guy that set the table as far as what great receivers were. Precision route runner, had decent speed, but Johnny Unitas always knew where he was going to be. And that was the difference in making him a great receiver. I think about Charlie Joyner, who played with Cincinnati and San Diego. He wasn't a fleet-footed guy, Charlton, but he had the sure hands. And Dan Fouts, as well as Kenny Anderson, knew where he was going to be on the route. And he became a Hall of Fame receiver. You think about Paul Warfield when he played with the Cleveland Browns and the Miami Dolphins out of Ohio State.
Yeah.
He was that way with Bob Greasy, that you knew where he was going to be. Bill Nelson was his quarterback in Cleveland. But when you got receivers who understand the game and they're not out there showboating, which we get so much of these young hothead receivers now, that it's all about them instead of staying in the scheme of things with the team. You think about Dave Casper, who played with the Raiders, who was an offensive tackle when he was at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
The Raiders made an all-pro Hall of Fame tight end out of him. So you know if he was an offensive tackle, he wasn't the fastest guy on the
Not
field.
the fastest guy, yeah.
But he understood the game and the scheme that they had created in Oakland for him to be successful. And that's how you look across the board when you look at outstanding receivers of the past. These guys were about running their route, staying in their lane, versus the guys now that want to say, hey, put me on a highlight show.
Would you believe maybe his most memorable catch, it wasn't really a catch, it was the holy roller down in San Diego when he was kicking the ball into the end zone and the Raiders found a way to win that game. Isn't that something that's his most favorite catch? Mix of your thoughts?
Well, the holy roller where, the NFL changed
because
the ball could not be advanced, you know, after it was fumbled. I mean, everybody on the Raiders and even a couple of cheerleaders picked that ball into the end zone. But let's go back to another point. You talked about the great Jerry Rice and him not being a speed burner when it came to time trials running the 40.
Right.
If you look at the receivers that were surrounding Jerry Rice during his career with the 49ers. They had Steve Owens, who was a sprinter out of UCLA. They had J.J. Stokes out of UCLA. They had Ronaldo Nehemiah, an Olympic hurdler. You had some fleet-footed receivers in San Francisco, but Jerry Rice was the guy you could count on because he was a precision route runner. A lot of those other receivers, Charlton, would overrun the timing of the route because they didn't know how to gear down and be in position. You think about when Terrell Owens came along out of Tennessee, Chattanooga, and he learned from Jerry Rice how to run routes. They had J.J. Stokes on the other side, a speed burner out of UCLA. But here's, Terrell Owens beat out J.J. Stokes because he was willing to understand what Jerry Rice was doing and became one of the greatest receivers of all time.
That's very well said. The route running, not the 40 time, made them Hall of Famers, Mixie. I love that knowledge. I do want to say what we're going to do is talk about a lot more things, especially, I love talking football. I can just, how when you go to a football game and they had that barbecue smelling in the air because barbecue smoke is flying across the stadium. I love that feeling whether it's high school, college, or pro, and I love whenever we talk about that. But we're going to take what's called a Big C pause, and we're going to talk about some of the things that's happening with officiating, and it's happening across the pond also. We're going to do that after we take this Big C pause, and we hope that you'll come back with us. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from what's called the Big C pause on Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, really, on the iHeartRadio podcast. You can also find Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can find Big C Sports on Spreaker, on YouTube. You can find us on Xfinity Comcast on television. And what I really like is the app that you have. If you walk into your home, you say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear our sponsors, and then you hear the show come up. So we thank our sponsors for their support with the Big C Sports Show. I want to get on this officiating thing. But before I go there, because here in Northern California, I follow the Bay Area quite a bit, I still hear the officer with Toronto Raptors president Ujiri saying that he has a concussion. Now, it's so odd because we hear about the police brutality, guys with guns and badges and pepper spray, etc. And he's saying a guy wearing a $3,000 suit gave him a concussion. And I don't understand how. So if someone's grabbing you, the most things you do is protect your face, Big C. Even boxers do that. Someone goes to grab you, you cover your face. So I don't know how that's going to go, but he's trying to file a lawsuit. I think that's so egregious. And I think for the NBA, you hire security people, you got to make sure that everyone has the right credential. But even if you are someone in the public eye, or even if you were working in security, you don't just try to rough people up. You want to ask who they are and what they're doing there. You don't just grab. Does that make any sense, Big C? You don't just grab people. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I hadn't heard much about Masai Ujiri being hit with assault. There's often this officers, suffering a concussion. First thing I think when it comes to mind, we've seen enough incidents on television with officers. If you assault the officer, his friends in blue are going to come to
all over
aid.
you.
And to give somebody a concussion, normally, Charlton, they have to go to the ground. It's very difficult. We see boxers get hit all the time and they go to the ground and they're not concussed. But I'm thinking about a police officer, grabbing an executive from an NBA team, and he said in grabbing this executive, he ended up with a concussion.
But
wow. As we said before, all you have to do, I mean, there was thousands of cameras in that arena that night.
Yeah.
Whether they were professional or handheld cellular devices.
On their phones, yep.
And taking pictures going on in this arena. And you're going to be hard-pressed not to find continuous action of the engagement between Ujiri and this police officer of this alleged incident that occurred. So as I think about that, and now that the police are crying that I've been assaulted by a private citizen who has money, and I want to sue him, that's a hard one to roll upstream, Charlton, when you're thinking about that. I mean, there's been a lot of egregious acts with law enforcement and with the public over time. But in a sporting event, is that you're going to charge the executive of a team with assaulting you just as he's trying to go out and join his team in a celebratory act.
You know, we just heard that he may be offered, what, $60 million? I think Ujiri insulted me too, because it doesn't make any sense.
Well, you know, when you see the dollar signs, you know, it reminds me last night of President Trump when he was making his announcement that he was re-entering the presidential campaign for 2020. He had his official kickoff last night. And his bashing of the Mexicans coming across the border on the southern border. And his base chanting, "Lock Hillary up." I mean, Hillary hasn't been running for president for 2.5 years. But they did not chant any, Charlton, about locking the people up that were in his administration who've been convicted of
have
crime.
Been locked up.
Not only that, Charlton, the president talked about the flow of drugs across the southern border of the United States. I don't know if he pays attention to the news, but they just had the largest cocaine seizure, you know, in East Coast history. The third largest drug seizure of all time. 17 tons of pure cocaine were seized in Philadelphia. Yesterday. The president made no mention of that. So when we talk about people in law enforcement and authority, Charlton, sending the wrong message to society, the president missed an opportunity and said we're stemming the drug flow tide in America, seizing 17 tons. But that wouldn't have been the raw meat that his base wanted to look at in saying that all of the drugs are coming across the southern border and you got to build a fence, even though they haven't built any new fence since he's been president. But this is the same thing with this officer and Ujiri. You hear a man being offered $60 million, and all of a sudden this man has assaulted you.
I think I have a headache.
So you're going to cry about this. You know, he assaulted me, got a concussion, I can't work. Let's get a civil lawsuit. Now think about this, Charlton. If you're working as a law enforcement, I don't know if you can file a civil lawsuit against a private citizen.
Well, they'll find out.
It's called settlement. We're going to find out about that, but I think if you're on the clock, that you can't file a civil lawsuit against a private citizen as law enforcement, Charlton.
Well, I also want to just add my own 2 cents. What man walking around in a $3,000 suit tries to beat up a law enforcement officer before he celebrates his team championship? It's never happened in the history of sports. Oh, like what did Don King say? Only in America? We'll find out, Big C. The court system, they want people to settle. You can be accused of anything. But I'll just say this before I get on to the next story. Anyone that accuses you of anything, if they don't have the ability to put you in front of your accuser, then they're lying, okay? And people lie all the time. The past year in sports has been a crisis level for all officiating. Think about it. It even reared its ugly head across the pond at the World Cup when France beat Nigeria 1-0 on an extra penalty shot. They got an extra one, like the penalty down in New Orleans with the Rams and the Saints. They got an extra chance to win that game because no penalty was called. I mean, we all have so many issues of who committed a penalty, who didn't. But now it's affecting the World Cup too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this took me all the way back to the 1972 Olympics with Russia and the U.S.
Oh, that was a bad game.
Gold medal game, Charlton, where Russia got multiple opportunities to win the game after time had expired. They kept going back, putting time on the clock until Russia could win the game, Charlton. This is what I saw in this Nigerian game, Charlton, in the World Cup. I mean, you got a penalty kick. The kick is blocked. And they come back and review the kick, Charlton, to see that the goalie had 1 foot outside the box, Charlton. And so, I mean, we think about how egregious this is. You know, sports is about reaction time when you're playing in real time. And we've seen every professional sport now affected by the officiating. Even college games, Charlton, affected by the officiating. Bad calls, going back, reviewing things that were egregious and not making a decision on them, Charlton, or altering the decision that you originally made.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point because everything can be betted on. And you know that Nigeria, they did not want them to advance in the World Cup.
Not in France,
they wanted advancing in the World Cup because that's going to upset the apple cart.
Yeah.
But, I think when you look at the young athletes around the world, and they're being punished now because that you have this replay system that you're not getting right.
Yeah.
If you're not going to get it right, why utilize it? I've always been for the banning of the replay system.
Yeah.
When I played, it wasn't a mainstay in the sport, Charlton. The officials relied on what they saw with their naked eye in real time, just like the athletes competing.
Yeah.
You didn't go back and say, let's go over here and check. Let's see in a timeout if that was a 3-point shot. If you called a 2-point basket in the NBA, it was a 2-point basket or it was a 3-point basket.
Yeah.
You didn't wait for a stoppage in play to go back and add or detract a point.
Yep.
We've gotten to that point in baseball now where they have replay in baseball. We already see the strike box up there.
Yeah.
We know that it's a ball, and yet the ump is calling a strike, or vice versa.
Yep.
But they don't go back and change that in replay. The only thing in baseball that you're allowed to challenge is whether the guy was safe or out on a base.
Yeah.
You can't challenge balls and strikes. Why have the little box up there that everybody is witnessing throughout the contest? It's wrong.
Yeah.
And then, as we look in football, and everybody sees the egregious calls, and there's just been some new rule changes in the NFL that in the last 2 minutes of a game, that the replay official can call for pass interference.
Yeah.
But you can't call for it on a Hail Mary, where nothing but pass interference exists.
That's what they tell you.
That play.
Yeah, that's true.
So if it goes into the end zone on a Hail Mary, you can't call pass interference, but any other place on the field. So think about what quarterbacks are going to do.
Yeah.
If I'm salient at a quarterback, do I throw the ball into the end zone or do I throw it inside the 5-yard line where I can get the pass interference?
That makes a lot of sense.
When you think about the stupidity of that rule of how it's set up, all these quarterbacks will just throw it short of the end zone now. As long as it's in the field of play,
yep,
you can call pass interference. As a matter of fact, you're going to be forced to do it. So the NFL did not realize what they were doing when they made that penalty in that way. But to have these women who fight hard for 90 minutes in a soccer match,
yeah,
and all of a sudden you have an egregious situation with the officiating that you block the attempt to tie the game, to win the game, Charles, because the game is tied.
Yep.
And they said, no, she committed a penalty. She had a foot out of the goal.
Yeah.
And then you go back and give them another opportunity, Charlton, which causes the team to be eliminated from the World Cup after a hard-fought battle where you couldn't let them stay another day.
Well, the Russians did it to the United States, as you mentioned, and sometimes when you're the home team, the shenanigans that go on, we know it's all fair and love and war. What do they call it? The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. What I want to get your thoughts on, too, talking about replay, golf doesn't have instant replay. But
they had it, Charlton.
They used to have it.
Golf had it, but you had some fans calling in from home
and complaining.
And old hags in golf did not like it because people sitting at home calling in, and they had to change what the outcome of some tournaments were.
Yes.
Players losing.
Yep.
So golf eliminated that replay scenario.
Yeah, and they can do it in other sports. I want to get your thoughts on something that I don't like, but I know some people do like it. I watched the U.S. Open, and it may have happened in the Masters too, but I'm not sure. But when you see they're on the green and they drive the ball, say, 350 feet. Now, or 350 yards, or whatever they do, 350 feet, they'll drive it. And they will show these lines on TV to show where the ball is going and where the ball is going to drop. Now, that's fine because not everybody has 4K TVs and can see everything. I like that. But when they're putting, it's a 10, 15-foot putt, and they'll show these two lines that the ball should travel to get to the cup. I don't like that. I think it tackies up the game, but that's just my opinion. They're putting too much technology into the game of golf that's supposed to be a pure sport. Does that bother you when they have two lines going from where the club is in that 10 to 15 feet road to the cup? Does that bother you? I don't think it's good for the game. It's too much. It's like John Madden playing football on golf. Does that make any sense? Your thoughts?
Well, actually, that's something that the PGA adapted from the NHL. Hockey used to have that blue tracer, Charlton, where you could follow the puck on the ice because the ice moves so fast.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that is a benefit for in golf is that you always have the analysts talking about how the putt is going to break, to read the lines.
Yeah.
And so this gives you an insight of what it takes to be a professional golfer. I mean, we're all casual golfers out there on the weekend, sometimes skipping work during the week. we go out and play. And the toughest thing for any golfer is to read the line of a green.
Yeah.
Because to understand how the slopes occur, how the dips and rises occur on a green, I think this gives insight. Just like the tracer on the drive, how they have the tracer and you're following the ball's flight.
Yeah.
As you see it going anywhere from 300, 350 yards down the fairway.
Yeah.
To see if that golfer has his game on point.
Yeah.
And so when we look at how difficult it is to putt, and you see how close putts are sometimes, within a half inch, lipping out, and all of those things, the difficulty of this game where every casual golfer sits up and say, I can compete.
Yes.
But when you see the PGA Tour talking, and these guys can't get it right, I think it helps out the average fan at home understand the game more.
I think one of my favorite calls for golf, the great Vern Lindquist, Tiger Woods at the Masters on his 16th, and it rolled up the hill and came back down, and it almost stopped, and it rolled in, and he says, in your life! And it's happened, like a couple other golfers did that. That's one of the great golfing calls that I'll always remember, Big C. I do want to ask you, since you brought up the mainstream, why can't mainstream professionals, let's say in professional sports, why can't professional sports be like mainstream society? If you want to change jobs, a lot of people changing careers, and you can change what relationships, friendships, whatever it is, and they can go on and do it what they want to. But college sports players, they can't do that. And we know this draft is getting ready tonight, and so many people are happy about what the professional teams can do and the owners of these professional teams can do, but they've taken it away from the players to have any say-so on what they do with their lives. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if you compare mainstream society to athletics, think about if you graduate from Harvard, top of the economics class, you can go to any company in America or in the world and have them bid on your service.
Yeah.
You're the free agent. You're the one who chooses where you want to go. If you leave out of the top dental school in America, Charlton, and you're the top of your class, you can choose where you want to work in this country, Charlton. Yeah. If you're an aeronautical engineer, you choose whether you want to work for NASA or in the private sector, Charlton.
Yep.
You have that right to become a free agent when you get out of college. Only athletes, Charlton, are not free when they get out of college. You think about, we've had the NBA draft, Charlton. As a player, you're forced to go, if you're the elitist player in the country, you're forced to go to the worst company in that professional sport.
Isn't that something?
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
When you graduate college, Charlton, and you're one of the Phi Beta Kappas, you know, student leaving, you choose the elitist company that you want to go work for.
Yeah.
You don't go to the worst run companies in America and say, okay, this is where I have to work for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Only professional athletes have to do that, Charlton. You're the elitist athlete in your sport coming out of college.
Yeah.
And you're forced to go work for the worst organizations in professional sport.
Yeah.
Football, basketball, baseball, hockey. This is what you're forced to do.
Yeah.
Why are athletes treated less than the private sector in America? And people say, well, they get paid a lot of money. You think those top flight academics who come out of college, Charlton, are not paid a lot of money to go to some of these companies? They get 7-figure salaries also, depending on who they go to work for.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Athletes are treated, as LeBron James said, like slaves. You work hard in your particular field in college to become one of the top 5, top 10. Think about that coming out of an academic class from the major universities, say Stanford, Vanderbilt, Harvard, Yale.
Yeah.
You know, these schools of that nature, Charlton, the top 10 of their class choose where they want to work in America. Do all of that.
Yeah.
They get to go to the elitist companies in America. They sign what they want to sign as far as tenure in that company, Charlton, how long they want to be there, and they negotiate their salaries. In professional sports, you're told what you can make, Charlton. You're slotted to make X amount of dollars, and you can't make any more than that.
Yeah.
But you have to go to the worst-run organizations in the industry. Think about that. If that's the goal for every college graduate, is that when you get your degree, you have to go to the worst companies in America and work.
Right. Yep.
How many people are going to fight for that college degree, Charlton, at that point?
That's a very good point. Yeah.
And so why do athletes, and why are they forced to go work for the worst companies in America? Why can't athletes have the autonomy to say, okay, I'm out of college now. I'm a free agent. I'm going to negotiate with the team that I want to negotiate with.
Yeah.
Charlton, what that will do in all professional sports, it will prevent tanking.
Yeah.
It will prevent teams not trying to win. It will force everybody to be good at that point, Charlton, because you want the elite players to come and want to play for you. Now, there's still going to be salary cap implications, Charlton, in those elite players being able to go where they want to go. But I think it would do all professional sports a great service if they would consider that, is that they eliminate the draft in the NFL, in basketball, Major League Baseball, and even hockey, Charlton.
Yeah.
Eliminate it. Allow the young men, when they decide to end their college tenure, that they give up their eligibility, is that they can choose the organization that they want to go to work for. If you want to be a backup quarterback and you're the best quarterback coming out of college, then you're allowed to go to New England and be behind Tom Brady.
Yep.
You're not forced to go to Arizona and say, okay, I got to toil out here with one of the worst teams in the league, a poorly run organization, the New York Knicks. Who's going to want to go work for the New York Knicks with those?
Nobody.
You know, you got the choice of the New York Knicks or going to the Los Angeles Clippers, Charlton. I'm going to go to the Clippers with Doc Rivers, a team that's on the uprise. This is what you have to look at as far as college athletes having an equal playing field with society.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not like what Laura Ingraham said, shut up and dribble. No, give us the opportunity to choose where we want to be as professionals, just like all these news broadcasters, Charlton. They're able to negotiate between networks. They want to leave one network, go to another.
One.
They're free agents of their own choosing.
Yeah.
Professional athletes cannot do that.
Well, I agree with that. The one thing I would say that I disagree with LeBron James, they're not treated like slaves. Slaves were lynched and murdered and did not get compensated for their work. So that I understand his lingo, but it's totally different.
But think about this. As a professional athlete, just like a slave, when they say it's time to leave this plantation, you're gone.
Yeah, but they don't give you $1 million. They don't give you $1 million.
We will send you to another master. And so, yes, to that degree, the lynching and beating and stuff is not there, Charlton. But you have no say-so over your livelihood or where you live when it comes down to an owner saying that we don't want you here anymore.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But I still wouldn't make credit to slavery. There's been too much lynching. We have a deep history with that. But I understand the point he's trying to make.
Well, but think about what Mitch McConnell said yesterday. That they paid restitution.
He said he already paid enough, yeah.
We paid restitution. Not only that, we gave you guys a black president.
That's what he said?
Yeah, he said that. We gave you guys a black president. There shouldn't be any restitution for slavery. He said there's nobody left alive that had anything to do with the suffering of slaves in America. Yes, it is. Slavery might have ended, Charlton, back in the 1800s, but the suffering of black Americans still has not ended. And you think about the civil rights movement. Mitch McConnell was a young man at that time.
Yeah.
When the Civil Rights Act was passed.
Yes.
And he was a part of that Jim Crow mentality coming out of Kentucky.
Yep.
He oppressed black people in Kentucky while he was going up, Charlton, in the ladder in politics. He was part of that oppression trail. His dad was part of that oppression trail. So to say that there's nobody around that had anything to do with the suffering of African Americans in America, Charlton, you have to look no further than Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Every politician that's in his 70s and above in Washington, D.C., Charlton, had something to do with the oppression of black people in America.
Well, it was Mitch McConnell that also said he wanted to make President Obama a one-term president. That was a dog whistle, and that was just recently. And then POTUS said he doesn't trust DNA because he stands behind the Central Park Five, even though they were exonerated based on DNA, which is science. But I guess if you don't trust in science, you can, there's people who all believe whatever they want to believe. I want to just close out with baseball. I know we'll get in heavy on the NBA tomorrow, Big C. There's a big night of baseball that is going to be played all around this great country. And it really is, it's a beautiful Wednesday. But the NBA draft will be on Thursday. And then Friday, everyone will be talking about it. But there's still a lot going on in the baseball universe. And I want to just bring it up because when you think about a number that I was doing some research on, pitchers with 2,500 strikeouts, a no-hitter, and the World Series MVP. There's only a handful. Bob Gibson, Justin Verlander, Cole Hamel, and somebody else did it last night. We'll do a Jeopardy question there, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that was Cole Hamel who did it last night, Charlton.
Yep.
When you think about it, he joined that elite club. You think about Bob Gibson. Bob Gibson changed the face of Major League Baseball from a pitching perspective.
Yeah.
This was a guy that forced baseball to lower the mound because he was such a dominant pitcher in his Cy Young winning year, along with winning the World Series, Charlton, with the St. Louis Cardinals. And so they lowered the mound to
make it fair,
to make it just like Tiger Proof, in golf courses.
Yeah.
You lengthen it, and you Bob Gibson proof Major League Baseball.
Gibson proof, yeah.
You look at Justin Verlander, who did it a couple years ago, Charlton, with the Houston Astros.
Yeah.
When they won the World Series. But to have 2,500 strikeouts in your major league career is a phenomenal feat.
Yeah.
And to win a World Series MVP, Charlton, that's just a sign of excellence, that you were a dominant pitcher at the right time. But to have these shutouts also, Charlton, to put on your resume, just a great feat by those three outstanding baseball players. Hall of Famers, so. All three of them will be.
Very much so. That's a very great feat. Tonight's schedule for Major League Baseball. Enjoy it tonight, because the next 2 nights and even the weekend, they'll all be talking about the NBA draft. And that's why a lot of kids will have their lives changed forever. Hopefully they'll get some good financial advice too. Tonight's schedule for Major League Baseball. It's a full house, Big C. Baltimore at Oakland. We have Milwaukee at San Diego. Kansas City's playing at Seattle. Philadelphia at Washington. I think Scherzer got hit in the eye taking batting practice, just messing around. And I think it broke it. Actually, he got hit in the nose, broke his nose. Have you heard any more about that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, no, I haven't. But, this is the chance you take being a baseball player, because that projectile comes back at a rapid rate, Charlton.
Yeah.
This is one of the things they've always talked about in baseball, is protecting the players and being able to protect their face. I know in women's college baseball, Charlton, a lot of the pitchers wear a mask, and that's one of the things that Major League needs to look at as an option for the pitchers, being able to protect their face.
Yeah, they say he's still throwing, though, Big C. They have Detroit at Pittsburgh and Los Angeles Angels at Toronto, New York at Atlanta, Chicago at the Cubs. Great baseball night for Chicagoans. You have Cleveland at Texas, Boston's at Minnesota, Miami's at St. Louis, Colorado, they're at Arizona, San Francisco at the LA Dodgers. And there's so much fun when you have the Dodgers and Giants series. There's just so much energy, and it'd be great to see that every night. Matchup games, you have Houston at Cincinnati, Tampa Bay at New York, and then Philadelphia at Washington. You think Harper going back to D.C., is that enough to get POTUS to go see a baseball game, Big C? He didn't relate on making all the money that he made. Your thoughts?
Well, one of the things about D.C., Charlton, he does not want to be seen in public in that city.
Yeah.
He'll go to Florida, but he's not like other presidents. I think about President Bush, President Clinton, President Obama, Charlton. They were always seen out in that great city, Charlton. They attended sporting events, whether it was basketball, hockey, football, baseball. Those presidents were part of Americana. They were part of the mainstream. They were presidents of the people, not just the elitists.
Yeah, I love when we talk about sports and some politics. I know a lot of programs, they just run down this course. They don't even know that we have the election coming up in a year and a half. They're just so focused on how big and tall somebody is. Will he get drafted in the first or second round? And that's okay. But we want young people to, always pay attention to what's going on in your environment. And I want to tell people, again, a national hotline for people who are going through some issues. Sometimes people get pressured, and they get pressured into believing things that are not even true. That's called bullying. Cyberbullying happens to adults and young people. But if you don't have the chance to face your accuser, then you're also part of that problem. National Suicide Hotline, 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255. If you're a teenager and you rather text, you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on Big C Sports Podcast, on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Spreaker. You can find us on the YouTube channel. You can also follow Big C Sports on television through Comcast Xfinity. But what I really like is that app. If you have that app in your home called Alexa, just say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear our sponsors, and then the show will come up, and we thank our sponsors for the support. Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, the entire sports world is looking at tomorrow night's NBA draft and wondering who will be the next person to become the future or the face of the NBA. The only thing people have to really look out for, Charlton, in tomorrow night's draft is that in the last 10 drafts, Charlton, none of those players have led a team to an NBA title.
Isn't that amazing? It's all amazing. We hope that everybody can watch it. We hope that everyone can have a great time. We hope that you follow every Monday through Friday at 5 to 6 p.m. Big C Sports. Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe. And as we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.